Hi. We're going to try something different today. So hopefully this works. So as some of you probably know, I just recently traveled to MAGFest. MAGFest is a big gaming and music convention on the East Coast of the US. And it tends to be a big event for rhythm gamers, anyone who's a big fan of like video game music, those sorts of things. And over the past couple of years, it's sort of become like the go-to convention for rhythm game players and kind of the adjacent crowd. Partially because there's a really big arcade at this convention, probably the biggest of any in terms of music game offerings. And also because over the past couple of years, there's been a bit of a presence with not only rhythm game developers of like arcade games, such as Pump It Up Infinity, but also there's been a growing rhythm game presence in the Indie Showcase, which MAGFest does every year. Basically, the convention hall is divided up into multiple spaces. There's a dealer's hall, there's an arcade, there's open console gaming, and one of those spaces is completely dedicated to indies, partially indie arcade games, and then partially just regular indie games. MAGFest 2024 was my first one, and that was sort of when I got the feeling of this is sort of rhythm games, the convention, or at least as close as we have to that. And then when this year's rolled around, I heard some interesting events that were happening and some things that were being brought that made me say, well, not only am I going to go to MAGFest this year, but I'm going to take my camera with me that I just got, and we're going to see if we can document some of this stuff. So other than fun, the reasons I went to MAGFest are threefold. First of all, an arcade distributor by the name of UbiParts brought a bunch of rare rhythm games to MAGFest. Not only games that North American players probably haven't played, but probably anyone outside of China hasn't played. They were very rare games that I had never seen before, and I wanted to get a look at some of those in person and try them out. We'll get to those another time, but the other reasons that I went to MAGFest are a bunch of indie games that I've been following and covering on this channel had booths at MAGFest, and by a pure stroke of luck, MAGFest happened to have interview space this year. The people who run the Indie Showcase managed to get space reserved for interviews of developers exhibiting at the Indie Showcase at MAGFest. So with the help of one of the people that we will talk to in this video, we managed to get a slot of time in this room. So in today's video, we're not only going to look through the games that I saw at MAGFest and talk about their updates, upcoming content, and releases, but we're also going to talk to the developers of all of these games and get their ideas about the state of the indie game scene, the update progress on their games, and hopefully more. And right off the bat, before we get into it, I'm gonna do one quick Patreon shill, and only because I think this time around there's gonna be some really good stuff on there that people might wanna see. While today's video is going to have a ton of stuff from each interview, we got about 30 to 40 minutes with each developer, and I can't use all that footage in this video. So if you like what you see in these interviews during this video and you want to see the full interviews, they'll all be going up on my Patreon following the release of this video. We got into some different topics, non-rhythm game stuff that didn't make the video, funny stuff, all sorts of different stuff you won't see in this video. So with all that out of the way, let's get into the video and see what the state of indie rhythm games are in 2025. So on the first day of MAGFest, we headed down to the expo hall after we got our badges and everything opened up. And actually, we were excited to go and check out the arcade first. I wanted to get in there early and see if I could get some footage of the games while there was no one there. But actually, the arcade opened a little bit late. So instead, I pivoted and went into the very busy indie game section where all the people now were because parts of the convention weren't quite ready yet. So I started to wander around and try to locate everything, and the first game that I came across was Vivid Stasis. I found the Vivid Stasis booth and they had a couple of computers set up with the game running a slightly newer build than what is currently going right now. It actually had some unreleased songs in it. The main song that was unreleased that they had at the MAGFest build was Multifex from Noise Starlight. After briefly talking with Cheryl, the developer, I had to sit down and give it a try. They actually had a score attack competition going on for that song, but there was no chance I was going to beat it with all of the crazy players that came throughout the weekend. But I was still keen to try the song because, as you probably know, I've been covering Vivid Stasis a good amount on the channel over the past couple of years as it's been developed, and in particular, after I played the most recent update, I've been very interested with the direction that the charting is going, in particular the gimmick charts. I found that in particular in Final Chapter Part 1, which just came out recently before this video, A lot of the gimmick charts had really nice light mod charting that was fun to play, but still was readable and wasn't impossible to understand. So I was very curious if Multifex was going to have the same kind of mods, and luckily for me, it actually did. I think the range of charts between level like 13 and 15 in Vivid Stasis have gotten like really good. They've like really narrowed down and improved the charting there a lot, and especially when they pull out the gimmicks, it can be really, really fun to play or sight read. Some of you probably saw me playing some of the new content for Final Chapter Part 1 in my recent live stream, and some of those charts were so good, I like played them 3 times in a row. I just couldn't believe how fun they were. Actually, at some point during playing Multifex, I could hear Jammy and Cheryl behind me tournament commentating in my ear. I think I hear Jammy tournament commentating behind me. You can't hear it too well in the footage, but Jammy was one of the tournament directors and commentators for Sunrise Showdown, which happened recently. So hearing the person that ran that tournament over my shoulder commentating on my mediocre Vivid Stasis gameplay was very funny. Vivid Stasis is currently on its last year of content, with Final Chapter Part 2 being very close. And I wanted to ask Cheryl what it felt like with this game that she's been working on for a really long time, almost being complete.
I think it was really good for me to have the last, God, almost 4 years in April to solely spend on Vivid Stasis. Right. Because before Vivid Stasis, I did have a really bad habit of starting project and project and project and just not finishing any of them.
Yeah.
So I think having this one 4-year period to only work on this one game taught me a lot about how to kind of pace myself better.
Yeah.
And I always kind of got to be careful because there are a lot of things I did with Vivid Stasis that I don't think I would do again. And that's kind of a problem when some of those are things that certain people really like, which is just like, oh, I just added a fishing minigame for the fun of it. But like I don't think I have the opportunity to have that luxury with future projects, because while there will always be a degree of kind of winging it as I go, as that's just kind of how I work on things, I will also definitely need to adhere to a more planned development structure.
The game itself is still planned to get updates through the end of 2025, but Final Chapter Part 2 will be the conclusion to the story, and that's coming up very soon.
Yeah, I don't know how we're gonna release that in time. If you're watching this video after Final Chapter Part 2 comes out, let me know if I got it out on time. If I didn't, I guess that's my fault for overestimating my ability.
As such, obviously, I wanted to know what was next for Cheryl and for Team Vivid Stasis. They've announced a few different games, some rhythm games, some not, that are upcoming after the end of Vivid Stasis. In particular, Polymorphite is the next rhythm game project and is currently planned for initial release in Q4 of this year. While we didn't get into gameplay details, I did want to ask what kind of things we could expect in Polymorphite, and we got onto the subject of story presentation.
A lot of Polymorphite structure is, for lack of a better word, kind of based on fuck it, we ball.
Let's go.
So basically how I'm approaching it is I'm writing a chapter of the story, and each chapter will end with a big decision that every player votes on. And depending on that, like the outcome of that, I'll write the next chapter of the story after that.
I'm looking forward to seeing what they have in store next, and best of luck to Cheryl and the rest of the team on the development of both Vivid Stasis and the other upcoming games. The next game exhibiting at MAGFest was Unbeatable. Unbeatable is a veteran of MAGFest, having shown their game several years in a row as it goes through its development cycle. Unbeatable is an upcoming rhythm adventure game made by D-Cell Games. While it does feature traditional rhythm game gameplay, another big draw of Unbeatable is the story. The game involves exploring an open world and following along with a story that's presented to you throughout the game. Notably, Unbeatable features an 100% original soundtrack, aside from some guest tracks and collaboration tracks. The art and visuals are also a notable point for Unbeatable, being very distinct and well produced. All of this comes together to produce what looks to be a very polished, high quality rhythm game. While I didn't get a chance to play Unbeatable at the booth this year, particularly because this year it seemed really busy, especially on the first day when there was a super long merch line, The version of the game that they had at the booth was the same as the one that they had last year, which I did get to play, so I wasn't missing out in that department. But I did get a chance to talk a lot to Chi, one of the game's main producers. Chi is actually the reason we were able to do the interviews at all. They let me know that MAGFest had interview space. Unbeatable's team is mainly focused right now on getting the game out. It's been in development for quite a while, and they're targeting this year as their release.
I always get comments from people being like, wow, I remember when this game looked super different like years ago. Because like the art style changed like between 2019, 2020, and 2021. Afterwards it became consistent, but like those first 3 years, the game was constantly evolving and changing in different directions, right? The one thing everyone always, who's been like repeat people come by and ask is always like, are you gonna finally release this year? Are you gonna actually come out this time? But here's the thing, is like they say that like we promised them the game would release at any year, and we've been very careful about not promising that at all until last year when we told people 2025.
Right.
And that itself is still very vague.
I remember when I talked to you last year, it was very much like, I can't even like give you an estimate.
I can't even give you an estimate.
It was like it was very under control.
Under tight lip. And I know more still, but like I still can't say anything.
Right. But 2025 is the number at the moment, the year at the moment.
Yes.
For the foreseeable future.
For the foreseeable future, it's 2025. Yes. It's good for me to not put that on banner, just in case.
The game seems to be making its rounds on social media more often these days as the marketing cycle kicks up. Every once in a while, you'll get a clip of gameplay or music or animation, and it just looks really good. The game just looks like it's shaping up to be something really special in the rhythm game space, with a lot of love and production value behind it. Up next was Beat Block. You might have seen some clips of Beat Block circulating online in the past year as the game got a demo and started to make the rounds. The idea of the game is that you're centered in the middle of the screen with a paddle that circles 360 degrees around you that you use to interact with the notes. The main note type you simply block, as it is in the name. But as you'll quickly realize if you play Beat Block, there's a lot more to it than that. Notes that require timing, notes that require slashing through them, mines, and even notes that come from behind you. All of that combined with the amazing visual design already present in the game makes the whole thing feel like a giant playable BGA. All that fun stuff that you normally don't get to see off to the side of your rhythm game gameplay, that's the game now. Beat Block had a booth at MAGFest and had some more new songs to play, but namely they also had a crank controller. The game was originally designed for the Playdate, which is a portable console that has a crank on it.
I started when the project was getting revived actually by our other lead developer, DPS 2004, Dimitri. Originally it was supposed to be an iteration of a rhythm game for the Playdate. For those who aren't aware, it's like a little portable console with the hand crank on the side.
It looks so cool. I've never gotten to use one.
It's really goofy looking, but I like it. It's got charm. Yeah, it was a lot more bare bones. It was pretty much all going to be like Creative Commons music, non-commercial stuff. And then we ran into our good old friend hardware limitations.
Oh no, really? I guess that's not that surprising on a device like the Playdate. If you've never seen the Playdate, it's literally like, I mean, how much power does that thing even have?
I don't even know. I mean, it's like a...
It's two-color display, right? It's not even...
it's two-color.
Yeah. Oof.
I know, right?
As I found out when I talked to the developers, that didn't really play out in the long run. So having a crank controller at MAGFest felt like a nice callback to the original design idea. Playing on the crank was challenging, but it was really fun. In terms of updates, Beat Block is looking at releasing in early access sometime this year, hopefully. Additionally, the build at MAGFest showcased some new songs coming to the game. In particular, one very difficult one. That's right, there was a chart of terabyte connection in this game. And let me tell you, I've already been praising the visual design of this game and how it interacts with the gameplay. Playing Terabyte Connection, as hard as it was, made me see the potential of what they're working with. They are cooking here. I played the demo a little bit, but like, that's really fun. If there are more charts as integrated with the visuals as Terabyte Connection, this game is gonna be a banger. It's gonna be awesome. Now, last but not least was Project God Hand. Project God Hand is the new game from Anarch Entertainment, the company that makes Noise. Noise Starlight itself is going to have its last update very soon, and as such, Anarch is working on their next game, which is Project God Hand. And let me just say, as you can see by the subtitle, I didn't know what to expect. I mean, I did, but I was afraid. So I walk up to the booth, and Taro sits me down in front of the tutorial. Now you're gonna see some gameplay and some audio here to see what's going on, but the main idea of the game is that to hit either side of the game's 8 key lanes, you mash on that particular side of the keyboard. This is a keyboard mashing rhythm game. The idea of the game is to just loosely mash to the chart, and it should work. The game's tutorial song was like way too good for its own right. Please take a listen to some of it.
Listen to my secret song. I'll show you how to use the God hand. Whenever notes fall down onto this right part, just press any key on the same half of your keyboard. Left, right, 2 on the left, 2 on the right, 3 on the left, 4 on the right, and that's it for the basics. This seems really easy. I'm sure there's next.
When I talked to Taro and K Eternal, we went through a lot of the gameplay design ideas, and honestly, I was baffled the entire time. This game is like nothing else that exists. Okay, K Etern, please explain how you came up with this game.
All right, so basically, I was watching really high-level 805 gameplay videos.
Oh yeah.
And so one thing, of course, you see this game's very mashy, and
Yes.
that's how it goes. So yeah, like as you can see, there's the 805 like high-level customs DNA in that.
Yes.
But more importantly, this is actually this is a little more indirect 805 influence. High-level 805 videos, often in the corner, they have like
The key display. That was what I was thinking
you
of.
understand that? Okay, yeah. Okay, so they have a key display, and some people like their key display when they press the keys, a little like indicator floats out of it to show like when they hit those keys.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, okay, if that was going backwards, it would be a really sick rhythm game.
So you came up with this based on the key display tracker from Out-of-Fi content.
Yes.
That is amazing. I mean, it actually does feel like that, so I think mission accomplished.
I think the thing about rhythm games is they've gone in a direction where a lot of them take themselves too seriously, and or not even that, like their community will take them too seriously. Like everybody's too serious about everything, and I think that it would be nice for a game to just not be serious about like basically any of it.
I think this is why asking questions about it is so hard, because then you go, why are you thinking about it too much? So like, just hit the buttons.
Yeah, well, that is the kind of game it is. It's very just hit the buttons, because once you really commit to the like mashing feel of God Hand, like you'll score pretty well. Like
Project God Hand comes out at some point this year in early access, and all I can say is, I can't wait. It was so fun to play. It's an odd experience. As Taro puts it,
You can just kind of pretend you're good at the rhythm game, and it will become reality.
so yeah, just an interesting looking game all around. I'm pretty excited to see what they do with it. I've become a pretty big fan of Noise in the last year, and I'm excited to see what these two can do that'll make me say, what the fuck? So aside from the game updates, when I talked to these developers, I also kind of wanted to get their impressions of the state of the rhythm game scene, particularly in indies, but maybe in general. When I interviewed these developers, I asked all of them the same couple of questions about some of the hot topics in the rhythm game scene in the past year. First thing I wanted to ask them about was artist inclusion. There's been a lot of discussion online in the past year about what kind of artists get into each game, who makes it, who doesn't make the cut, what's good enough to be in a game, how do you balance between popular artists and between smaller, newer artists. I kind of wanted to get each of these developers' impressions on how they handle it in their games. So this isn't necessarily the be-all, end-all, this is just how some of the developers in the scene are currently handling these issues. When it comes to Vivid Stasis, Cheryl said that the way that their team judges what songs get into the game in a more straightforward way comes down to having a group of 4 people, each with different perspectives on what kind of songs should be in the game, to differ up opinion and help decide what should make the cut.
So how we did judging for that was we had 4 judges. There was me, Jammy,
Yep.
Asaph, and Lumbud. I picked us 4 because we do, despite the fact that we're all working on the same team, we have differences in music tastes that I feel like really lend to each other.
Yep.
Like, for example, me, I kind of like, I'm really gravitate to more melodic experimental stuff. Jammy is very much the tournament tiebreaker kind of guy, like your last wishes. And then Asaph sees things from a more production perspective, being a musician herself. And then Lumbud is very kind of, Lumbud, if you see this and get mad at me, I'm so sorry, kind of like silly core. Like,
When it comes to Unbeatable, it's a bit of a different situation since they have in-house music, but she did have some perspective on song contests and free work.
We've actually talked about song contests before, and I think universally the team was not happy with the idea because it felt like you were just kind of, it's like a marketing beat, like kind of thing where you're getting people to participate and make free content for you, essentially. And it doesn't have like a right vibe to that. We want to directly collaborate with people rather than do something like that.
When talking to CV35, one of the developers of Beatblock, he mentioned that their team does like to highlight smaller artists, but that it can be a real battle to be heard.
It's definitely, it's competitive, especially if you're online too. 'cause
Definitely.
It's kind of a battle to be heard pretty much.
Yeah.
Like if you, even getting someone to click onto the link for your page or open up a track and listen through it is hard. For our end, at least logistically, how I've been handling it, we've done a song contest with another artist community. Assembly was pretty great to work with. But we also have an open call thing, which is kind of a lower stakes. They can submit whatever's in their existing portfolio and we'll listen to it pretty much.
Not only that, but he had some very interesting perspective on smaller artists getting caught in the trap of producing genres that are more commonly used in rhythm games.
I think there's a good chunk of up-and-coming DTMers where they look a lot more into common electronic genres, stuff you normally see in rhythm games. Sound Voltex, Archaea, and the like. I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing, because if you have that many people who are just making variants of something that's commonly seen and existing, you kind of run the risk of flanderizing or generalizing a lot of what's available, you know?
So like all the available music that you pick from ends up being sort of similar? Yeah. So then do you think there's ever a case where it's like, I'm actually looking for something that I haven't heard before?
Yes, actually.
In the case of God Hand with their upcoming game, they focused very heavily on open song submissions.
There's a lot of artists who are interested in including songs in or games. Obviously, like in rhythm games in general, honestly. Like, and for God Hand in particular, I really was interested in giving as many a shot as possible. So for a good amount of time before we built the song list at all, actually, I had open song submissions, and like song contests are a big ask in the sense that you have to write a song specifically for it.
Yeah.
And in this case, it was like, well, artists who like have cool songs lying around should get a shot. So song submissions are easy for like everyone to participate in, and I like the ones that got in, like, you know, we just licensed them like on a non-exclusive basis. So, you know, there's that.
Right.
And obviously, like, because it's pretty low effort to submit them, we got a lot of submissions.
Really?
And I listened to every single one.
Nice. Okay, all right.
So for God Hand's base song list, most of it comes from that song submission.
Wow, almost all of it.
Yeah, like definitely the majority. So
That's crazy.
Like, I'd say like at least 2/3.
You really got a lot of songs then.
Yeah. No, we really got a lot of stuff, and so much of it was good too. Like,
Really?
I had like a list of like 75 songs that I thought were like good enough to put in the game, and I'm like, I can't put 75 songs in the base song list of this game, so I had to cut it down agonizingly again and again.
Oh man.
So while there is a sense of concern in the community about popularity contests, I think at least the developers that I spoke to showed that they were mostly committed to finding the songs that were right for their game, rather than picking artists based on size or popularity. The other thing I wanted to ask all of them about was customs. Custom songs in rhythm games are an ever-present hot topic, with many people for and against them, especially in the past year or two with some certain events that have come up in the community. As such, I wanted to know from some of them how they felt about customs, whether it was in their games or in general, whether games should have them, and how they felt about permission and whether songs should be used in customs or not. An overarching theme that I heard from all the developers was the general trend of moving toward a list with all of the artists and songs that are allowed to have customs made for them in a given game. A lot of mentions were made of games like Audify or Rhythm Doctor, which are already supporting lists of artists that allow their songs to be used as customs in that game.
We have a big verified artist list. There's also a field, so like whenever you make a chart, you actually have to pick a box, like this artist is from this, before it lets you put it on
Like a
Steam.
drop down?
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. So it's very strict.
Before it lets you put it on like Steam Workshop at all.
Oh.
So is it one of these artists? There's also a field for I made the song myself.
Oh, okay.
But even with the verified artist list, you have to check the actual artist, because like when you pick the artist, there's like allowed, there's also mostly allowed, which is look at this link, which is also like in the game, and it'll be like you can't use these songs, and it'll notably be like stuff like you can't use, I don't know, I can't think of a specific.
I assume
artist.
like other rhythm game originals.
Yeah.
That's usually like the biggest point of contention, I would say.
You can't use all the rhythm game, and then it's like there's stuff that's like, oh, this is on a label, so we can't.
Yeah, can't use that.
And then there's mostly declined, which is the opposite, where it's like here's a page with the songs that you explicitly can use, and then there's explicitly declined for artists who have seen their stuff and requested that it is not in Audify, which is another thing we offer.
Everything with EX Driver Customs is so scrutinized and whitelisted that there's a official list of customs that is maintained by the community, or not maintained by the community, maintained by the developers. It's maintained by Taro, who and like all of these customs have been the artist permission have been verified and all of that. And it's kind of similar to like what a Rhythm Doctor or Audify would be doing, but it's actually like. And again, this could just be because they have a smaller community, but it's like, it's fully enforced there.
Most of them also had the general sentiment that asking artists for permission and checking for licensing issues must be followed by people making customs for an existing game.
I think that customs designers need to obey the artist's licensing rules in every circumstance. I can't believe this is as big of an issue as it is.
Taro in particular made a very interesting point about artists seeing their content in a game that didn't ask their permission to do so.
So Vivid Stasis has like this opinion on customs as well, but like I had to explain because I'm technically also a moderator on that Discord to someone who was like adding customs into the game, and like you're not supposed to do that. And the explanation I gave to them was that well, for starters, that game is fully non-profit, but most of their song list is contingent on asking permission properly.
Yes.
So that's like sort of why Cheryl really wants to keep that under control. If someone like looks up your game that you want to work with and they see like a bunch of stuff that is theirs without permission already, that's an extremely bad look.
Yeah.
Especially when people are really good at making really good looking customs. Stuff like that can go viral and overshadow your actual game's content.
I talked to Beatblock about that.
And you really don't want that when you're trying to negotiate with people.
Most of them didn't have an explicitly negative sentiment toward customs, as a lot of them came from customs backgrounds, but most agreed that in a game like Stepmania, which is not commercial, it was a different situation versus a commercial rhythm game that has licensing.
But when it comes to games that you sell commercially, I think there's even more of a it's even more important to not use the content of artists who you haven't like explicitly contacted. Like you're not paying. Like you have to be paying them for their like material if it's going to be in your game that you're selling. Like because if you allow customs in a game that you're selling for profit, all kinds of music is basically a feature of your game that is being sold.
Yeah.
And you did not pay for that or get permission for it in any form. I would compare it to AI scraping.
If you compare it to a game like Stepmania, is that more because that is a game that doesn't have its own content? It is kind of for customs, and it's like it's not really anyone's thing. No one's making money off of
it's,
it.
no one's making money off it. It's also very, very like decentralized. There's
Yes.
like 500 million steps. There's not a person you can go after.
So yeah, it was an interesting discussion, a lot of varied opinions. It's always a bit of a hot topic these days with some players that think that every game should be infinite and allow all customs. But I think the developers understandably have a bit of a different perspective on that issue. Again, the full interviews will be on my Patreon. Most of the rest of the discussion isn't explicitly rhythm games, but there might be some other stuff that I didn't get a chance to include in this video. So if you want to see those in full, that's where you can find them. And of course, a huge thank you to the developers who lent me their time at MAGFest to make this video. I'm super looking forward to the future updates and releases of these games. I've left links to all of them in the description. Please check them all out. They're all made by very passionate people trying their best to make a fun game. And I'm looking forward to playing and covering them on release. They're really, really fun. I think it's easy to see that there's some really cool stuff coming up in the rhythm game indie scene, and there's even more stuff than what I mentioned here on mobile and other places. So definitely take a look at all these games and more and just see what's out there and see what's coming up. There's a lot of stuff out there being made by passionate developers that might not have as big of an audience as some of those huge games that get all the players. So definitely try them out if you get the chance. Thanks a lot for watching. I don't know if I'll do another video like this again anytime soon. Filming this was a little bit tricky, but I did enjoy getting a chance to interview these developers, and I hope in the future I'm able to do at least some more stuff like that. Talking to the developers in the scene, I think, is always an interesting way to get a pulse on what's happening in the community. And who knows, maybe at MAGFest 2026, we'll make a return and do some more coverage. Thanks for watching, and thanks so much to my supporters on Patreon. Check out my Twitter, Twitch, and community Discord. Links are in the description below. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.